Alright guys, here it is. Everybody's been asking me, hey doc, what do I do to get into medical school? What do I do to choose a residency? Number 3, what kind of residencies are future-proof? Because if I'm getting into medical school now, I'm about 8 years away from starting a job as an attending. What would you choose? And number 4, would you do it again? If you had the opportunity to do medicine again, would you do it? For those who don't know, I'm Dr. Hassan, board certified trauma anesthesiologist. A little bit chilly here in Los Angeles today, so I'm wearing my vest because, it's cold. Now, number 1, what do you do to get into medical school? Now, anybody who's watching this video is probably interested in getting into medical school. How do you get into medical school? What are the requirements? Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I went to college. I was actually a finance major. I was not a pre-med dedicated major, as they say. I didn't do biology or chemistry or anything like that because I found those subjects to be very nuanced and specific that didn't help me become a better person. Admittedly, I did finance as a major, but that's not because I'm not a good person. It's because I enjoy financial stuff. I enjoy business, stocks, all those kind of things. So I pursued that, but I took my pre-med rec classes. So if you're applying for medical school, there's a certain number of classes you have to take, like biology 1 and 2, chemistry 1 and 2, organic chemistry, physics. And once you take those classes, after that, there's a test that you have to take, and that test is known as the MCAT. Now, what is the MCAT? The MCAT is basically a way for different medical schools to judge applicants across the board because you never know. One college might be a little bit easier in chemistry and one college might be a little bit easier in organic chemistry. It's not the same professors that are teaching every single person. So because of that, they have an MCAT test. You have to do very well on the MCAT. I did pretty well my first time. I did better my second time. Now, admittedly, I don't know the best prep for MCAT because it's been almost 10 years or 12 years since I took the exam. Could be 15 years. I'm not even sure anymore. But at that time, there was a course called Exam Crackers with a K. That's what I took. It helped me kind of prepare myself for MCATs. But what you need to do to get your foot in the door is do well on your MCATs, do well on your GPA. And here's the advice that I give most medical students or people who are applying to be medical students. Do something memorable. What do I mean by that? Well, do something memorable means have something that the medical admissions committee will remember you by. Whether it's photography, whether it's bodybuilding, whether it's fitness, whether it's passionate about food, whatever it is, have some sort of passion outside of medical applicants. This is because a lot of colleges, especially medical colleges that are trying to include diversity, inclusion, all those kind of things, they are honing in on well-rounded individuals. So they want somebody that comes from different backgrounds, whether it's communication backgrounds or writing backgrounds. They want people who are enthusiastic about other types of subjects. If you're a college athlete, you're a fantastic applicant for medical school. Why is that? It's because most medical schools and medical school admissions committees, they know that if you are a college athlete, you have the dedication, the ability to put yourself through medical school and succeed. Because medical school itself is basically trying to drink water out of a fire hydrant. And if you can imagine all that information coming at your face at once and being able to absorb all of it, you need to have a lot of dedication. You need to have a lot of discipline. And college athletics instills discipline. So above all, the medical admissions committee, they're going to be looking for somebody who has the ability to not only show that they've done well in the past, but also has the discipline to do well in medical school, because the last thing they want is to hurt their reputation by having X number of medical students fail out of their medical program. So because of this, you have to show these 3 qualities. Now, there are some other options as well. You can also go to DO school, so that's MD and DO. They're basically the same thing. And you can also go to the Caribbean schools or international schools. These schools admittedly admit a lot more people, and they kind of filter out those who don't make it. But if you're dedicated to getting into medical school, it's a fantastic route. I have a lot of colleagues who went to Caribbean schools. I myself went to DO school. If you want to become a doctor and you're passionate about it, you've thought about your whole life, do it. Because, it's one life. Now, once you get into medical school, here you go for anybody who's in medical school, is thinking about medical school. How do you choose a residency? And how do you leave an impression on a residency program? Now, here's the college, here's the medical school, and now you have hospitals up here who have residencies that train you to become the type of doctor you want to be. You can't just be a do-all-everything doctor like you see in Grey's Anatomy. Because hospitals are more of a hybrid type of institution, they're not academic purely, they're going to look for different qualities. Now again, the number 1 advice that I give to medical students that want to get into any sort of specialty, especially anesthesia, have something memorable about yourself.
Wow.
If you're a medical student and you've made it to the 3rd year or the 4th year, you're obviously academically gifted, you're obviously very disciplined, you obviously have an understanding of medicine, but what's going to separate you from everyone else? Well, obviously, if your test scores are exceptional, that's going to be a standout measure. But if you can do yourself a favor and have something that's memorable, so when you go on your rotations, if you have something you're passionate about, make sure you express that passion to your residents and attendings that are working with you. If you express that passion, they're going to remember, hey, Jack he used to love Tesla. Hey, Maggie, she was a fantastic cook. Hey, James, he wrote a blog letter that had 10,000 subscribers. And Jimmy, he's a social media influencer who's exceptionally passionate about plastic surgery, and he has many different reels and many different comments, so you can tell that he's dedicated. The reason I tell you this is because when the application committee who's going to accept you into residency looks at your file, they're gonna see the same numbers for everybody. You're gonna see Jack had a score of 450, Mike had a score of 720, Jill had a score of 640. I'm making up numbers because the USMLE has changed from the time I took it. My point is that the admissions committee is not going to remember you unless you have something memorable. What did I do myself when I was a medical student, when I was applying for residency? I made it a point to always express my interest in electric cars, my interest in working out, my interest in fitness, my interest in socializing. These things allowed me to become friends with a lot of the residents and attending, so when I went for my interviews, I was able to remember and rekindle that little spark. So when the admission time or when the match time came, they remembered me. They were like, hey, Zane was big into Tesla before Tesla was cool. Hey, Zane was really big into fitness. He used to work out every single day. Hey, Zane was always asking questions about intubating when he was on his anesthesia rotations. Whatever it was, those professors and those attendings remembered me because of my interest. The other major tip I'll give you is you really want to become friends with the chief residents that year. So if you're going into surgery, you want to really, if you can, get on the service with the chief residents. This is because the chief residents are looked up to by everybody else in the program, and the people on top, so the attendings on top, look to them for their opinions. Once you become a chief resident, you're kind of like the second-hand VP in the process. So if you become friends with the chief residents, they'll remember you at the time when the admissions committee is getting together and ranking their rank, and they'll say, hey, he was a good guy. I think I can work with him. We're gonna rank him 7th on the list because Jack, Jill, and Amy did better on their USMLEs, but Zane was a nice guy. So that's my advice that you should take home, and please share it, or maybe don't share it because you're watching this video, but that's the advice that I give you. If you can, become friends with the chief resident, have something memorable so they remember you, and if you can, try to excel in your scores as well. Obviously, every hospital is going to know you're very dedicated and you have the ability because you've survived medical school, but you want to be memorable if you want to get into, plastic surgery in LA, neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins, radiology at Brigham and Women's, or cancer surgery down at Baylor, whatever you want to get into. If they remember you, you're going to have a better chance of getting that residency spot. Now, what residencies would I choose if I was choosing residency right now? This is where I give you the warning. There are several fields in medicine that are at risk of being replaced or minimized in the near future. If you're looking to go into medicine right now, you're looking at about 8 to 10 years before you become an attending, and another 30 to 40 years in which you have to earn money. What you don't want to do is pick a field that will probably be minimized by artificial intelligence, robotics, those kind of things. Now, what are the fields that are most likely to be replaced by artificial intelligence or be minimized or most likely at risk of having substantial depreciation of their assets? Number one, obviously radiology is in a bit of a pickle because a lot of the AI they use is going to get better than the doctors themselves at some point. Obviously, there will always be a doctor, or at least the next 30 to 50 years, there'll be a doctor who's able to read those scans and confirm the results. But the necessity of having thousands and thousands of radiologists will probably come down in number. So because of that, the salaries will come down, job opportunities will come down. So it's probably not a field I would be gearing to go into if I was a medical student now. Because the short and the long of it is probably within the next 10, 20, 30 years, the amount of radiologists needed will probably come down. Number two, any field that has algorithmic-based decision-making. What do I mean by this? So any sort of field that follows an algorithm. If you have a heart attack, here's X, Y, and Z that you do. If you have gallbladder issues, this is X, Y, Z, and you do. Now, obviously, this doesn't apply to one field in particular, but for example, let's talk about infectious disease. There's only so many superbugs out there. There's only so many medications to treat it. You can kind of envision a world where artificial intelligence can kind of aid in decision making, at some point be able to better analyze and decide for you which antibiotic to use, which cream to use, which type of infection the patient has. It wouldn't be a field that I would jump into anyways. Number three, you probably don't want to go in any fields that have to do with reading slides. Kind of like radiology, pathology is also a little bit, questionable in the near future. I wouldn't want to go into it now knowing that in 10, 20 years, there could be some issues in the future. That's the best way I can politically say it, but you can kind of understand what I'm trying to say. You want to look to the longevity of the field. You're going to be practicing medicine for 30, 40, 50 years. You don't want your impact, all your sacrifice to be minimized because of technology. There will always be a need for doctors in all of those fields, but their impact will be minimized and the amount of job opportunities will be minimized. So you see what I'm saying here. You want to go into fields that are going to flourish with artificial intelligence and technology, not fields that will kind of be squished. So what are some fields that will be AI technology proof for the next 30, 40, 50 years? Because eventually they're going to replace all of us. Here's my opinion. Number one, you want to go into something that involves your hands. So whether it's surgery, interventional cardiology, interventional radiology, those type of fields, the minutia that you need, the micro movements, they're not going to be able to be replaced by robots anytime soon. We still don't even have self-driving cars. Robots can barely do anything inside a factory. So before they're able to actually replace doctors, they're going to replace a lot of other jobs first. So you probably have 40, 50, 60 years before we have some sort of robot that does surgery on a person. So surgery, anything interventional, probably good. Number two, anything that has to do with emergency type of medicine. What do I mean? So any sort of crisis management medicine, so anesthesiologists, emergency medicine doctors, ICU doctors, those kind of doctors are going to be needed because technology can probably tell you what you should do, but they won't be able to do it for you fast enough. So if you know anything about anesthesiology, there's critical moments in every surgery, and there's critical moments before, during, and after surgery where an anesthesiologist is needed. Now, can artificial intelligence do what I do? Probably, but it isn't able to act fast enough to save someone's life, intubate them, put in a central line, fix their blood pressure. It can suggest what you need to do, but the ability to apply that solution probably isn't going to be there until we have robotics that are able to do it for you. So what I mean by that is those type of critical care, emergency, anesthesia type of fields will be around for a very long time because they might have to replace surgeons before they replace emergency doctors. So that's one of the fields that I would look into. Now, the other thing you got to look into is changing demographics and after post-pandemic issues. ICU is not very popular anymore. Why is that? It's because nobody wants to be exposed to another pandemic. We've gone through a lot of different personal traumas. So not a lot of people want that stress. So because of that, ICU is not very sought after right now. And these things come in waves. You know, ER was very hot 10 years ago when I was applying to residency. Now nobody wants to do it. Those are all factors you should take into consideration. Everything comes in waves. Anesthesia wasn't as sought after when I started residency. Now it's one of the hardest fields to get into. You always also want to prioritize life. So any of the specialties that prioritize life are going to be the most in demand. What do I mean by this? Anybody that doesn't have to take call overnight, doesn't have real emergencies, and does a lot of non-insurance-based practice. So dermatology, plastic surgery, breast reconstruction, all those kind of surgeries are going to be high in demand always. Now, what would I choose if I was applying to residency right now? Well, there's a couple. Number one, I would definitely look into psychiatry. The emphasis on mental health has become extraordinary. Mental health is an evolving field. It used to be taboo, but it's not anymore. And now everybody's pushing for it. The amount of demand that psychiatrists have is insane. You can work from home, which is unheard of in the medical field. Radiologists can do it too, but psychiatrists, fantastic field. Surgery, I would definitely look into plastic surgery. I think plastic surgery is one of those fields that's kind of like an art form. It's, you know, your vision translated on a human body. If you have an artistic type of personality, it's a fantastic field. Obviously, it's very hard to get into. It's not easy to get into plastic surgery, but if you can get into it, it's a fantastic life. So if I was going to do it again, I'd probably choose those two. And third, I'd probably choose anesthesiology because, you know, it's a fun field. You make impact in people's lives. You save a lot of lives and amazing job satisfaction. Now, would I do it again? This is the part of the video where I get a little bit honest with you guys. I get a little bit more candid. Would I do medicine again? I've thought about this every single year since the pandemic has started. Every single year I think about it. Every single month I think about it. Probably every single week I think about it. Would I do medicine again if I had to? Would I tell my son to do it? There's a short answer and a long answer. The short answer is yes, I would do it again. The long answer is there's a bunch more caveats. Would I tell my son to do it? Absolutely not. I don't think that it's worth it, the amount of time you put in for the results that you get. But this is a big but. If you are interested in having an impact while you spend your time on this earth, there's nothing better. If you're interested in having a purpose, then medicine is fantastic. If you are a goal-directed person, medicine is fantastic. If you're an artist and you have a more flexible type of view on the world, then medicine probably isn't the best alternative now. By alternative, I mean best choice. It's because medicine has become very, very formulaic. You basically become an insurance company's middleman between you, the insurance company, and the patient. There's not as much satisfaction in medicine as there was 20, 30, 40 years ago is because insurance companies are the new investment banks of medicine. They kind of run the entire thing. So they tell you which medicines you can and can't give, which scans you can and can't do, which tests you can and can't do, which surgeries you can and can't do. So because of this, it's not the best. That being said, I myself wanted to have an impact on this world while I was here. So I did medicine. I would do it again for that reason. I wouldn't do it for the prestige because that's not going to be there in the next 20 years. I wouldn't do it for the money because the money will always continue to go down. It's never going to go up. Nobody's ever going to come out and say, hey, I think we should give a raise to doctors. It'll never happen. And number three, the job satisfaction is also going down. Most doctors are burnt out. They're tired. A lot of the new age, younger physicians don't want to work those crazy hours. So all those factors go down. Now, if you have a personal view on it and you want to make an impact, I think it's fantastic. I would do it because of that. So I hope this information makes it to you and you're able to get into medical school. You can always send me messages online. Check out my social media. My Instagram is the place where I respond the fastest. I'm always willing to help as many people as I can. Can't give you formal medical advice, but if you're looking to get into medical school, remember, make an impact, make them remember you. If you want to get into residency, become friends with the chief residents. If you want to pick a field as far as residency goes, pick one that's going to have more impact in the future, not less impact. Love you guys. We'll see you in the next one.